So to have impossible standards to live up to is actually not fair in a sense, because everyone psychologically, physically are not the same. They're not. But some stiff in a tie has created a society with rules and regulations and a certain moral ethics that we're all supposed to live up to based on their opinion of how it should be. But they weren't thinking about the guy in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, for example, who's doing it tough, or they weren't thinking about the homeless people in Los Angeles. They didn't have these people in mind.
More we have rules and regulations, I think we more get to abandon the people who are different.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is to say that how much society or government in general don't trust people, don't trust their own people in their country, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, this endless cycle keeps going on. More rules and regulations, right? And they change the rules and regulations every time.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to follow. And then you need to research for yourself, but then there's tons of different things to look at. And all the languages that our lawyers would use, we have no idea, right? And more rules and regulations there are, more we don't trust people, more we don't trust government and society.
Yep.
And that's actually that story that Confucius and Lao-tzu's conversation. They call, the Zhuangzi wrote this.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah.
Imaginary dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Confucius come up to Lao-tzu talking about charity. He wanted to discuss about the charity. Charity is such a good idea to help one another, and we help people who are in a poor situation and they need help, and and who are lacking a lot of things, and we can go and help out these people, make their situation better and whatnot. But then Lao-tzu just scoffed at him. What charity are you talking about? Yeah.
Exactly.
When it needs to rain, it rains. When the sun needs to come up, sun will come up. And so the nature, the world itself is just functioning just fine.
Yeah.
Right? So that's to show the Confucius that how much he himself in that dialogue thought that is a right thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's over a sense of control, right?
Yeah, it is control.
And the control is based on not trusting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of Lao-tzu's points is that in Confucius creating all of this rules and regulations and so forth and so on, that's why there's a need for charity and duty and universal love. And Lao-tzu saying, if you had never created any of this, you idiot, then we wouldn't have to be talking about charity and duty and so forth and so on. Because, like you said, the sun comes up in the morning, the stars, they're doing the same thing every day. What makes human beings special? Why should human beings have to control nature and control each other? That's one of the main points of Taoism, right?
And one side effect with the charity is that because people they do the good work, charity work, but that gives you a certain sense of identity that they are doing good things. I'm a good person.
Yeah, it's moral based.
Yeah, and they act out of that place and they judge themselves from that place, which is a little bit cringe.
Yeah,
for
a bit
me.
cringy,
Yeah. Whereas you would help other people because that's what people do.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, that would be completely Lao-tzu's perspective, right? Charity, we all think of that as charity.
Yeah. You just do it.
Because that is just right thing to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not something that you need to label it as that's a good thing. You are doing good deed.
Because people are trying to be pious, see? They're trying to live up to a standard of being virtuous. You know, like in especially spiritual paths like Christianity, Confucianism, so forth and so on. They create these standards. And that's when then you get, like you said, the cringy people who are on Instagram giving food to a beggar. Like, look at me, look what I'm doing. It's virtue signaling. It's virtue signaling. It's not from the heart.
Yeah.
It's not from the heart. And Lao-tzu's like, you don't need rules and that to help each other. Actually, the rules and that keep you actually more separate from each other. The morality keeps you more separate. You see, because like you said, you're creating an identity, you're creating self-interest, You're creating separation between one another.
It naturally abandons people who, let's say, don't participate charity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like, they're not doing good deed. They don't have good heart.
They don't have a good
Like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not the way.
There's just people are in different circumstances.
Yeah.
You need to see it that way. People are in different circumstances and have different life situations. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to look at. But again, you raise a good point because you're creating a separation between those who support charity and those who don't, as if the ones who don't are bad. And that's not true. Like you said, there's a large portion of people who do support charities who are just virtue signaling. Look at most of the billionaires and this and that. They don't really have a vested interest. It is great that they do contribute money and this and that, but they're kind of like ticking boxes.
Yeah.
They don't go out there and get their hands dirty without the cameras.
That's right.
You know, you've worked at Mother House in Calcutta. How many selfless people go there without? This is pre-social media when you were working
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
You're not there going.
I had no phone, no mobile phone.
So you're doing it because that's what is needed. That's what just has to be done. That's what Lao-tzu's point is. Like if you see someone on the side of the road and they're a bit hungry and you have say if you have a chocolate pie, you just, here you go, I don't need it, I just had lunch. That's it, and you just keep going. Or if you have a chat or something, I don't know. But there's nothing more to think about.
Yeah.
See, there's not a standard of morality that you need to live up to. You're in sync with nature. You know, you see animals acting that way, right? You see one animal that may not have food or so forth and so on, and then there's situations where another animal will come over and give it some food because it's not as maybe physically built and it can't protect itself as much. But there is that intrinsic li within everything that knows that that animal needs something as well. You know, just give them a little bit of dog meat or whatever. And it's not to say that there isn't competition in nature. Of course there is, but there is that as well. There is that fundamental goodness there, and the problem with the human mind is we've taken that fundamental goodness and we've put that up on a pedestal, and anything that falls out of line with that we say is evil and bad and we condemn it, and then you set up a standard, and we can't live up. Standards and labels are not natural. I know that you and I harp on about this within the podcast all the time, but if you're following especially Taoism, you can't follow standards and labels. And you also can't be a moralistic person if you're going to follow Taoism. Because the Taoist sage is not touched by the drama of the world.
Yeah.
They follow the way. But it doesn't mean they're not generous and they're not and they don't care.
Yeah.
They know that if they contribute to this artificial illusion of partiality, that's only going to contribute to more conflict and down the line. In some sense, your actions, especially in that regard, have such a significant effect because you're kind of contributing to the drama, right? You're adding fuel to the fire, and we don't need no more fuel on the fire. Taoism's not really well understood because the way China kind of went with Maoism and with communism, the fundamental principles and understanding and the deeper meaning of Taoism was kind of lost. You know, so the understandings of the Zhuangzi text and the Tao Te Ching were kind of then overlaid into certain moral ethics and were kind of brought in line with, in some sense, with Buddhist ideas and that as well. But even though that there may be Buddhist elements within certain elements of Taoism, they are still two opposed parts in some sense, especially when we talk about morality. You know, because the Tao is about just following the way of nature. You don't have to be vegetarian. You don't have to do anything. You have to understand the way. You have to come into alignment with the way of the universe. And that's a path of letting go, and also letting go of morality, letting go of your sense of self. And if that means that you're going to take up a job in a soup kitchen, that is what the Tao will determine for you. You will be in a situation that you'll end up in a soup kitchen working for the homeless people. And that's all good.
Yeah.
But don't start to associate that with being pious and that you're more moral than a guy in a pub on a Friday night getting smashed. That's the difference, right? Like Lao-tzu would say, we still need to go in the pub getting smashed. It's just nature. That's always going to be that way. Don't try to change it. See, the problems happen when you try to change it. People get annoyed when you're trying to change the way they are. We mentioned homosexuals earlier. They get annoyed when you're trying to impose them. No, you should be heterosexual. It's like, they're not heterosexual, man. Let's leave them alone. Let's let them live their life.
Yeah.
And that's Lao-tzu's point. Instantly, when you're trying to interfere with life, you're causing conflict.